Good morning. My name is Lisa Greenwald, CEO of Greenwald Research. We're pleased to have you all here today joining our coffee break. As I said, as we were gathering, these coffee breaks, we aim for them to be small and informal. We want to share some information that we've seen and collected recently through our research, but we want to discuss. So feel free to ask questions, either jump in on audio or via chat, whatever you're most comfortable with as we go. And we'll leave a little time at the end for discussion and questions as well. Today, I'm joined by Greg Hershberger, our Managing Director of Health and Benefits Research. And he and I worked on a study called The Role of Benefits in the Great Resignation. So I'm going to let Greg take it away from here.
Thanks, Lisa, and thank you everyone for joining. I hope it's a little less rainy and miserable wherever you are this Friday morning than where I am. But start by telling you a little bit about the group that we were surveying. So we talked to people who are aged 25 to 74, and these are folks who are either currently working or made employment changes in 2021 or plan to do so in 2022. We weighted the results to be representative of the population. And our general question here was to understand the attitudes and motivations that are influencing people to leave the workforce or change their employment status. As we all know, the Great Resignation has kind of gripped this country over the past months and year or so. So we wanted to dive into that a little bit more and with a specific lens towards employee benefits and what it means, what the implications are for benefits and attraction and retention. So to start, we asked folks if they made any changes in their employment status in 2021. 34% did. And then looking forward into 2022, 39% are planning to make a change in their employment this year. Folks who are more likely to have made changes tend to be younger, contract workers, gig workers, or self-employed, have children, and be a member of a minority group. Black and Hispanic folks are more likely to have made changes or plan to make changes. We're also looking at lower income folks who are planning changes in 2022.
Hey, Greg, one administrative question. Your audio is coming a little in and out, so maybe you can get a little closer to the mic there for everyone to hear. And one thing I'll add for color commentary, we hear about the Great Retirement, the Great Resignation. I've heard the Great Reshuffling. We had sort of two hypotheses. Was this the Great Retirement, older workers exiting the workforce for retirement? Or my personal hypothesis that it was younger parents. And we see a little bit of both, but as you can see, who was more likely to make a change, it was parents and younger, which I thought was interesting.
So what were those changes that people are making? In 2021, most folks who made a change, or a plurality, were moving to a new employer, 38%. 52% are planning to get a new job with a new employer in 2022. Saw about 17% change their hours from full-time to part-time or vice versa. Going down the list a little bit, 14% in 2021 became self-employed or started their own business. Higher share is planning to do so in 2022, with 26% of those who plan to make a change planning to become self-employed. Now, there is a difference between changes that were made and changes that are planned to be made. Plans don't always come to fruition. So maybe this number 39% is higher than what we'll actually see, but we'll see how that plays out. Looking at people who made a change in their hours, for the most part, that's a switch from full-time to part-time with the same employer. And regardless of if you're switching from full-time to part-time or part-time to full-time, people are generally staying with their same employer, 84% in 2021 and 67% planned for 2022. So why are people changing? We asked that this is an open-ended question, and we went back and we coded it. We asked, why did you make a change? In 2021 and in 2022, COVID-19 plays a pretty strong role. Folks saying they want to make, or they made a change because of it in general, or because the pandemic just caused them to feel like they needed to make a change. One big difference between 2021 and 2022, you'll see unhappiness with pay. 28% say they plan to make changes this year due to unhappiness with their pay. Moving down the list a little bit, I think this is interesting on made changes for 2021, offered an early retirement package or wanted to retire, that's 8%. And of course, there were some who didn't have a choice in making a change in employment last year. 8% said they were laid off. So
Is it possible to ask a question on that slide, or should I wait till the end?
Go ahead, Sarah.
So I'm curious on the unhappy with pay. Did you get any additional detail on that? Was it that, a raise didn't keep up with the inflation we're seeing, or something else happened that's the, I'm surprised that's the top answer a little bit.
Yeah, we didn't dive into unhappiness with pay with specific questions because frankly, we didn't know that this was going to come to the top of the list. Yeah. So we didn't have additional questions to ask. What we could do is dive a little deeper into some of those open ends, see if there are any more specifics. But unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you.
I think we also know, and you'll see in the coming slides, we know what it's not, right? It was pay, compensation, hourly wage specifically, because we called out benefits and PTO separately. So this isn't necessarily total comp. It really might be that wage salary issue.
Yeah.
I mean, how much do you think that employees think in terms of total comp versus just whatever their rate is? I mean, we know there's value in benefits, but I doubt the average person thinks that way.
Well, that's part of what we sought to figure out here. I mean, is this really an issue of pay, which is in the employer's court, right, to solve, or is there something that benefit solution providers can be offering or doing that would move the needle or help here with attract and retain? And we do see a whole lot of pay and other elements very much in the employer's control, not so much things that benefits are going to solve for, because I don't think people, to your point, think in terms of total comp.
Yeah, I would agree that people don't always think in terms of total comp, but as a worker who's getting an employer match, if that were reduced or taken away, you would understand that something was being taken away from you, that money wasn't going in. So it's good that this has to do with pay. It isn't catching perhaps that the employer stopped doing a 401k contribution or something. Right. Thank you.
So we asked if the pandemic caused them to delay making that change in their employment or expedite it. And in 2021, 45% say the pandemic caused them to expedite making a change. Moving forward this year, 37% say the same. Same question, but regarding the current hot job market. So did the job market cause people to delay or expedite change? About 40% both in 2021 and planned for this year say that yes, it did cause them to want to hurry up and make a change. Only 15% said it would cause them to delay making a change in employment.
Hey, Greg, sorry to bug you, two things. We're losing your audio again a little, but if you toggle, I think what's interesting between the previous slide and this one, the pandemic expedited versus the hot job market expedited, and you look at the plan changes in 2022, the hot job market becomes a little more of a driver for 2022 changes, whereas the pandemic was a little more of a driver in 2021. And I think that pattern echoes in a variety of our questions.
I think it's interesting because you said that it's majority low income. And when you think about the hot job market, at least in my area, you've got like fast food companies that are offering $1,500 bonus to sign on. I mean, it's just, it really does seem like it's a battle for the lower wage worker than, I mean, I don't know if you measure this at different tiers of employment pay or if it's, but anyway, it just seems to make sense that the lower pay would be more attracted to that kind of war for talent, if you will.
Right. And this is a closed-ended question that we asked as to why people made changes in 2021. Top reasons: don't feel valued as an employee. Pandemic caused them to feel like they just needed a break, or they feel burnout, or like they need a break. Also, flexibility in working hours. 55% say they changed their working situation because they wanted to see some more flexibility, followed closely by company culture. So you'll see those major reasons, not really benefits related. We see some lower down here, unhappiness with employee benefits. 43% said that was a reason. And then unhappiness with paid time off, sick or vacation, 41%. Parental leave, 36%. So some of those specific benefits are lower on the list than general pandemic-related fatigue and wanting more flexibility, feeling like a better fit with the company culture and feeling valued as an employee. And I think that's interesting because feeling valued as an employee, benefits can play a role in that and making you feel valued. But the benefits still did not come the whole way up to the top.
Can I ask a question on this slide as well?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, did you ask any information on how many of these people were working remotely versus not remotely? Because I'm wondering if this is catching that. So I'm sitting at home by myself day after day after day after day doing my job, but I'm not having the interaction of someone smiling at me or, saying, oh, that was great or whatever. So do you think part of this is picking up the impact of the remote work rather than that sort of brought these things to light for these people?
It's interesting. We did ask about remote work, and of people who had the ability to work remotely at some point during the pandemic, I think it was, and I don't remember if this is in this deck or not, but I think it was 80% said that they want to have the opportunity to work remotely, at least part-time. So people want to work remotely. They aren't really expressing frustration about, missing the things that you mentioned that may play into this. So if it does, it may be something subliminal, but folks are saying that they want the opportunity to work remotely.
And if I remember, Greg, if we do a crosstab, right, of those working remote and how they answered, the remote workers are happier, right? Which is a little counterintuitive, Sarah, I think, because we think maybe remote work is making them not feel valued, but they're generally far more positive.
Yeah, that's why I was curious. If you were to do this slide for the people who like remote work versus the people who don't, do these answers vary? Or does the remote work you do feel valued because you're trusted to work from home? So yeah, you're gung-ho and you don't like commuting and all those things. So I was just curious how the remote aspect influenced this answer.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm getting out of this is on these top tier thing. When you look at the data here, you can see like there's a top tier, these ones that are like in the 50s, because let's face it, the difference between like 54 and 57% is not and then you got the 40s and the 30s. So top, middle, and low tier. Just looking at the top tier, I mean, I'm seeing there's not necessarily one smoking gun. It's a variety variety of things here. You got, hey, I did not feel valued as an employer. You got a couple burnt out issues, and you want some flexibility, and then throw in this culture thing. There's not one that's like hitting it. It's a variety of things, all in the
Right.
top tier, all in the top tier.
Yeah, I mean, to me, thematically, it's culture and work-life balance, right? And flexibility tossed in there as well. That's that top tier theme.
Yeah, do you know what? That, Lisa, I think you're right. Yeah, now that I look a little closer, you're right. That is the theme there. It's the burnout, and they want flexibility.
So this question was asked of those who are planning to make a change this year, and we see a difference. Rising to the top, again, is pay. 66% say it's a major or minor reason that they're planning on making a change. Pandemic is still up there, 61%, as is flexibility. But again, pay really taking that jump. Some of the benefits related, specific benefits related reasons are again down lower on the list. And this is what I was referring to earlier. Of those who had the ability to work full time or work remotely, at least part time, 65% are currently doing so, whereas 80% want to be doing so. So what are people considering when they're planning on making a change to their employment? So this is looking at people who made a change last year who were not fired. And highest pay possible is at the top, with company culture and mental health and wellness benefits following as well. I think mental health and wellness is pretty interesting. That's certainly been a hot topic since the pandemic. Supplemental health, we find that one a little bit strange. Maybe a little bit of a respondent confusion, seeing health and thinking it's health insurance benefits in general. But we found that one a little strange. Working for a smaller employer or working for a larger employer, there seems to be a split. So there isn't like a huge preference here of moving to a small or moving to a large employer. And again, benefits generally lower on the list. But I do want to bring up a couple. If you look at the very important, that's the dark blues, working from home, remotely or hybrid, that's very important for 30% of people, and understands the needs of working parents. And I'm assuming you guys can guess what subgroup is more likely to say that's very important. Working parents, very, very likely to say that's important. I don't remember the exact percentage, but it's much higher than the 29% here. So what could employers have done to make you want to stay? People who left last year, about half say nothing. There's nothing they could have done. And the top answer for something that they could have done is a little bit nebulous: be a better employer. So things like, respect us as employees, think about the physical spaces that we're working in. So working from home or working in the office, and just generally be a better organization. Better pay was 17%. And again, if we're looking at 2022, better pay rises to 35%. We asked about a number of less common or emerging employee benefits that we've seen recently, and if any of these would have an impact on someone's decision to stay with a current employer or motivate them to move to a new one. Flexibility was at the top, signing bonus, retention bonus. Some of these, again, looking at the great deal, dark blue numbers. Unlimited PTO is fairly popular. Option to work remotely, 33% said that would influence them a great deal. You see down here for these last five, there's a bit of a drop off. parental leave, student loan repayment, college savings benefits, childcare assistance, pet insurance. And that's likely just because those are things that wouldn't apply to everybody. Those would be specific benefits for people in specific situations in their lives.
All right, Greg, you know I'm going to interrupt here because number 3 is a personal favorite of mine, the ability to retire gradually. And we see this so consistently in so much of Greenwald's research, this desire to retire gradually. But as a benefit, it really hasn't been implemented by employers. A program that would allow workers to retire gradually. And so this one really gets my attention if we're hoping to attract and retain older workers or retain institutional knowledge among tenured workers. In this environment, rather than lose them altogether, why not have them part-time? And there isn't a program necessarily in place for this at most employers. It also means that if they go part-time, they may lose benefits and elect to essentially remove themselves from eligibility of benefits. And I think that's something that has to get fixed and addressed as well.
So among people who made a change last year and got a new job, we asked them, how is it? Is it better than things were before? And for the most part, people say yes. So work-life balance, about half say that it's improved. Almost half say base pay is improved. Benefits options, amount of PTO, contribution to retirement benefits, all more improvements than it getting worse. And looking at base pay, I think this is interesting. You'll still see 22% say that they made a change and their base pay is worse or lower than it was before. So to me, that suggests that some of the other items on here are more important to some people than pay.
I think it's also some of our people who went to part-time.
Yep. So this is a little bit different, but we wanted to ask these people, given all of the changes going on, if there's a change in preference for how they're receiving their benefits. So we asked if they would prefer to receive benefits, how they've been receiving it, traditional employer provided benefits, versus something more like purchasing on a marketplace, a cafeteria style selection with an employer stipend. 40% say that they would prefer to continue with traditional employer provided benefits, but a not insignificant share would actually prefer getting a stipend and going out and shopping for their own benefits, about 1 in 4. So some questions on folks' current job. We asked if their satisfaction with these metrics improved, stayed the same, or declined over the past year. Job satisfaction, workplace culture, and work-life balance. Slightly more say it's improved than say it's declined. But then the rest, we're seeing declines on ability to save for unexpected expenses, for retirement, and the ability to pay for bills. So that can, tie into all of what we're seeing about pay, especially in cases whenever we're looking at the low income folks. When rent increases are 5% and your cost of living adjustment is 1.5%, it's almost like you aren't getting a raise every year. But then down lower on the list, physical health and mental health, folks are saying have declined more often than improved. And I think all of us can agree with the pandemic that satisfaction with social life, a little bit lower. Insatisfaction with their current employer. At the top of the list, relationship with colleagues, manager, and having meaningful work. Health insurance benefits are also up there. Down lower, and you'll see the spike here in the purple for pay and compensation. 55% say they're satisfied. 26% say they're unsatisfied. And again, these aren't just people who made changes. This is everybody. So you might see a little bit of dilution or difference from what we saw among people who actually made a change. And a couple questions on retirement. As Lisa referenced earlier, we're talking about the Great Resignation, the Great Retirement. There is some indication that people were retiring earlier than they had planned last year. Of those who retired last year, about 50% say they retired earlier than they had originally planned. And looking forward to this year, that number is 29%. So why are people retiring early? Mainly health issues, 35%, followed by COVID-19, which in some cases can be interrelated. 12% say they have no choice, but fewer are saying that they left because they just wanted to. So more related to health, more related to losing a job and not being able to get it back. So of people who didn't retire last year, but are in retirement age, so these are people who are 50 years old or older, 19% say they financially could retire now. 47% say they could emotionally retire now. And 16% say they could both emotionally and financially retire, which could be a little bit scary for employers, seeing that 16% of their 50 plus workers could at any time just say, you know, I'm done. So that's our deck, and we're right at 11:30. But any questions, any comments?
Well, you make the point that almost 50% of people are ready to retire at 50 plus, but they're not financially ready. It almost begs the idea that we're so gung ho on trying to get them financially ready to retire, but at the same time, if they were, would they pull the trigger, or is there? Because I don't know how much satisfaction is there, even if you're financially ready to want to continue to work. So very interesting. I think the kind of the psychological aspects that are playing into it are just as heavy, if not more, than the financial ones, at least for some of them. But clearly, for the amount of people that want to change because of pay, it certainly would be a financial issue, perhaps even more than the psychological one. So I mean, this is really interesting data that you've got here. And I presume, Lisa, we're going to get the deck. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we will send you the deck if you'd like it, and I believe a link to the recording of this conversation as well. Always available on our website. The thing that I think is really interesting about the psychological is also, I'm sure most of you noticed how high mental health and mental health benefits popped on some of these lists. You know, we're not feeling emotionally well these days as workers, it turns out, and it's showing that we want benefits to help. You know, that to me was one of the true benefits needs to emerge from this.
Yeah, I think I was at an HR conference a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, they gave what they say are the top 6 trends: burnout, mental health, compassionate support with flexibility, inclusive well-being. I mean, it's just, I think, where everything in the benefit space is going is, look, we've got all these financial kind of benefits, but do we really care about the person? I thought it was interesting. Not feeling valued by my employer, I think, was one of the top one of the lists. And that makes sense, that perhaps one of the easier things to kind of address, right? It's hard to find more money, but is it so hard to improve the culture? I don't know. For some places, maybe it is, but to me, I think it's good news to be able to recognize that it's not always a financial fix, right? So good stuff.
Hey, Greg and Lisa, quick question. It looks like you had a sample of like 1,200 respondents. Do you know if you had a significant sample from healthcare workers by chance?
I can check on that. One second.
Industry was probably, because we didn't target, fairly dispersed, right? Because this was Gen Pop, but
Okay.
we would have gotten, I'm sure, somewhere in the anywhere 2 to 10% range, depending with a sample like this.
Okay.
We can certainly pull exact numbers.
Okay. And I can shoot you guys a note with that, what I'm looking for as well.
Are you doing follow-up work on this, or is this like the extent of your current project?
Oh, I love these projects because these quick hit studies, which by the way, we partner with an AI platform, an AI research platform, Response AI, on these, and that's what helps us get them done quickly, more quickly than custom studies and some of our other programs. They tend to be one-hit wonders for us, but we always get germs of ideas for what the next syndicated is going to be. So I don't know that we'll trend this necessarily, but certainly we already have some ideas around the mental health, around the gradually retiring, where we may do something that focuses on one of these themes a little bit more.
And we had 11% of our sample was healthcare, at least for those who are currently employed. So it looks like around, I don't know, 90 or so.
Okay. Okay.
Please.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts? What might you like to see in the next study?
Well, as you know, I'm in the financial wellness side of the planet. So, the argument that we would love to make is people who improve financial wellness would hopefully want to stay longer with existing employers, if for no other reason that they would hate to lose a benefit like that. So that's certainly selfishly the direction that I would love to see continued exploration.
Sure. Well, thank you all for joining us on this Friday. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and weekend, and hope to see you again soon.